Well, my name is Linda Maggio Ramey. I've been breeding Filas now for 9 years. I first became interested in this breed. I moved to the New Jersey area from upstate New York and had a sporting breed and was very lonely for any sort of canine companionship, and called the local kennel who bred working dogs and sort of invited myself over for coffee. And upon getting a tour of the kennel, I saw this litter of puppies, and of course it was, what is that? That's the Fila Brasileiro. I fell in love with the breed. I took one home, and it's been a passionate love affair ever since. We have no more sporting breeds. We're solely Filas now. The history of the Fila its origins are very mysterious. The most accepted theory is a combination of Mastiff, Bulldog, and Bloodhound. And when I say Bulldog, I'm not talking about today's Old English Bulldog, rather a Bulldog that looked more like a pit bull, longer in leg, definitely not a pushed-in face. And the Fila has been traditionally used in Brazil as a farm dog. It would go out with the cowboys and help gather the cattle up. If they needed to segregate a couple of cows for branding or castration, they're typical stock dogs. They'd leap up and grab the face and hold it. If they needed to move a herd from point A to point B, the Fila would chase and nip at the heels of the cow and get them going in the direction the cowboys needed them. And of course, at night, they came in back to the farm. They didn't stay with the herds, and they guarded the farm, the fazenda as it's called in Brazil, and wouldn't allow no strangers anywhere near. As in the United States, farming in Brazil has become a big business. You don't have free-ranging cattle anymore, and the Fila has slowly been phased out of that part of its job, and now it is basically a guard dog, especially in the big cities of Rio de Janeiro, Brasilia, and Sao Paulo.
What type of environment does the breed need?
The breed needs an environment of people who love it. This is not a good kennel dog. They do not like living in kennels. They want to be with their people. In terms of an exercise requirement, they're not a particularly high-energy dog. They just want to be what you want. If you're a couch potato and you like to just sit around and watch TV all day, most of Filas will be perfectly happy to follow their owner's lead. If you'd like to exercise, you want to run a couple miles a day, the Fila will do that too. They are truly the most extraordinary breed in terms of wanting to please you. The Fila is very unique. When they're young, and I'm saying 6 months and under, in most cases, don't forget every dog is an individual, they're pretty open to whatever you want to introduce them to. But with most Filas, at approximately 12 to 18 months of age, the circle closes. The people and the things that that dog is comfortable and familiar with are all it will accept for the rest of its life. I definitely recommend that Filas be introduced to children from a very young age or not exposed to them at all. I think there's a little bit of a misnomer with all dogs as far as the Lassie syndrome. It's true that Filas are great with the children in your house. That does not mean that they're great with all children. And I've seen this in all lines and all types of Fila. They can't understand that children are playing, and because your kid is yelling and screaming on the bottom of the pile and having a good time, to the Fila, this looks like trouble. So I don't think it's a good idea for any working guard dog to be treated like a Labrador or a Golden Retriever in terms of people, children, and strangers. You should always be on your guard.
I've heard it said that a Fila that receives no socialization other than its immediate family is so naturally protective that these dogs are just lawsuits waiting to happen.
I think it depends on who's raised the dog, how much training and socialization it's had. I have definitely seen some Filas, I've owned some Filas that were lawsuits waiting to happen. This breed is only to be purchased and owned by people who are responsible. And if you want, in other words, you really can't have it both ways. If you socialize your Fila and you raise him up to understand that when you bring people into your home and you've admitted them that the situation is under control and the dog does not need to react, that's fine. There are many, many Filas that can learn this and don't have a problem with it. But then on the other hand, don't expect to take that dog outside and have him be a lethal weapon on the end of the lead. And the opposite is true. If you never socialize him and he leaps and snarls and goes after anything that comes within 5 feet of him, well, obviously put the dog up when you have company or when anyone strange is on your property, because he's just not going to tolerate their presence.
I have a Fila Brasileiro. His name is Oak. Recently, 8 days ago, my house was broken into. Oak was in his kennel. He took 6 shots point blank with a 25 caliber bullet and broke out of his kennel and got the people out of the house. But he was hurt badly. He's still carrying 4 of the bullets. They only got 2 of them out of him. And everything's under investigation, but he's in good shape. He's still with me. And I wouldn't go near him right now. Good dog, great breed. Not for everybody, though.
What are some of the inherent health problems of the Fila?
Hip dysplasia is probably number 1. Fortunately for us, our problem with hips seemed to be in obtaining OFA numbers for breeding certification more so than actually lame, crippled, dysplastic dogs. All of this does happen. Most of the Fila live very healthy, happy, productive lives. They're certified mildly dysplastic, mostly due to what's called subluxation. There's simply not a tight enough fit between the hip and the socket. But all in all, a Fila is a very natural dog and lives a very healthful, not too expensive in terms of veterinarian care life.
What's the trainability of the Fila?
Is excellent. Healing is a natural trait with these dogs. They have very little tendency to pull ahead of you. There are some problems as far as Schutzhund with the dog doing the revere, for example. It can be very hard for a Fila of a correct temperament to do this sort of sport, to understand, oh, I can't bite on the revere. And it would really take a lot of training to teach him, for example, in the courage test, he can only bite the sleeve. He's not allowed to take the guy down. I have to be honest and say that if you're interested in Schutzhund or ring sport and you really want to be competitive, the Fila would not be a breed for you. They're definitely never going to be able to compete in those spheres with Rottweilers, Malinois, German Shepherds. I had an experience coming home from a dog show a few years ago. I was coming down 95 north from Connecticut through the part of the Bronx that 95 weaves through, and it was terrible, terrible traffic, and we were all stalled, just stop and go, stop and go. And, you know, some young punks were running from car to car. They were either trying to solicit money by spitting on windshields and getting them cleaned. You know, they just kind of wipe it off with a handkerchief, or just banging on the hoods of people's cars and really being a nuisance. I wouldn't say they actually threatened anybody, but it was 9:30 at night, and I was a little concerned, so I took one of my Filas. I was in a van. I took one of my Filas out of his crate and just had him loose. And sure enough, they came up from the side of the van, and he went to go. I didn't have air conditioning, so my windows were rolled down. He went to go and stick his head in the side of my window, and this dog just came out of nowhere. Rawr! He pinwheeled back, and the car next to me. He wasn't even screaming, he was gibbering, and the whole flock of them just took off. And good dog, and I barely was able to restrain him from going out the window, so I tied him to the passenger seat, and I happened to look in my mirror, and a guy 2 cars back is kind of waving. He's trying to get my attention, but he doesn't want to come up to the van. And he sees that I see him, and he calls out, "What kind of dog is that?" And I said, "Oh, that's the Fila Brasileiro." And he said, "Well, boy, every cop in America should have one of those dogs." So I was pretty proud of my guy. I believe with all my heart that if all you're interested in is the bottom line profit motive, there's absolutely no way you can be true to this breed. There isn't any money to be made in breeding dogs correctly. You have to have a lot of guts. You have to make some really hard decisions sometimes to dogs that you might really love and really have wanted to use, but have to discard for one reason or the other. And you have to be true to yourself, and you have to be true to your breed. And if all that matters is making money, then it's impossible to do that.
What are some of your general thoughts on protection dogs?
I think protection dogs are much better than guns. A protection dog that is of proper temperament will never accidentally go off and kill your 5-year-old because he wandered down to see the Christmas tree at 5 o'clock in the morning. I have children myself, and I worry about our security, or I did before I had the Filas. But a gun just didn't seem to be the solution. There are just too many accidents that can happen. I would really like to see the intruder who could wrest my Fila away from me. But it would be a very real possibility of someone wresting a gun from me. I think dogs also are more a deterrent because really, ideally, you don't want the person to ever even get into your house or on your property. You really want him to take a look at your situation and say, no, I'm not going to mess with that. Let me try somebody else. And with a dog, that's what he sees.
My name is Bruce Hunter. This is my Fila Brasileiro. He's 9 months old. He's the son of Trouble. And right now we're doing bite work with him, you know, in the rag, introducing him to the bite.
My name is Wayne Lawson. I'm the head trainer from the Pet Consultant. We're located here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We do protection, we do obedience and advanced obedience training. All our dogs spend between 8 to 10 weeks basic training on the obedience. From there, they go into advanced obedience. From there, they go into the protection.
Good boy, out! All right. Good boy, 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 good.
There's a hand drop.
Get him! Out! Get him! Out!
That in the United States, we are really making great strides in meeting the FCI requirements that all dogs that have earned a show championship before they're awarded that title must pass a temperament test. In the case of the Fila, this means that you have to be able to pass gunshot and agitation. And I think that all breeds of dogs should have temperament tests, and they should have proper temperaments comparative to what their function was supposed to be.
We'd like to thank military trainer Earl Hoog of Philadelphia, PA, for his assistance in this breed segment.
Good boy, good boy, good boy, good boy, good boy, good!